It's finally here, the month that I'm most excited about, not just because I'm a huge fan of Christmas, and on that note I have to say happy holidays to anyone who is celebrating any kind of holidays, but if you're not, then you are welcome to get excited with me about Christmas. I extend that invitation to you. For those who have no idea what's going on, my name's Josh, this is the Arcane Forge. This is a channel where I draw monsters and talk about lore and mythology and what they're like in Dungeons and Dragons in way too much detail, and this is my favourite month because I get to talk about exclusively dragons and draw a bunch of them as well. Now, to kick us off, D&D recently released a book called Fizbans Treasury of Dragons, and I know a lot of you will probably be wanting to get that wrapped up neatly underneath the Christmas tree this year, so I thought it'd be a good idea to post a review of that book so you know what you're in store for, or if you're on the fence about it and you've yet to write your Christmas list to Father Christmas, then maybe this will sway you one way or another. Now, I'd hoped to have a physical copy that I could go through here and talk to you about, and even though I pre-ordered it ages ago, I am told that my delivery won't arrive until the 1st of December, and I mean, spoilers, it's not actually December while I'm recording this. This kind of stuff has to get done in advance. But I will take you next door into the Arcane Forge office where I have a digital copy that I can go through with you, and this will be the first time that I've opened this. I've not looked at it so far, other than the odd thing coming up on Instagram. I have no idea what's inside. I'm really excited about it, but I've held off until the making of this video. So come with me next door and let's get started looking at Fizbans. And happy Dragon December! Welcome to the Fizbans Treasury of Dragons review. I just downloaded this. There's a bit of a weird story that I kind of talked a little bit about in the intro part of this. I pre-ordered Fizbans ages and ages ago, and I got an update recently saying that I pre-ordered it on Amazon for a physical copy specifically so that I could record this video, but I keep getting updates saying that it's going to arrive by December 1st, so that's no good to us. So I downloaded it on D&D Beyond. I'm recording my screen now so you can kind of see what's going through here. I won't do too many spoilery things, I hope, but I will be reading it. This is my first time looking at it. I have no idea really what's in here aside from the odd thing here or there that's been shared via the D&D Beyond sort of like Facebook and Instagram pages and things like that. So this is really a first look for me. I've heard a lot of talk online as well, but thankfully I've been able to avoid a lot of spoilers. So spoiler warning for you if you are getting this book, if you are concerned about spoilers and things like that, this will be a spoiler heavy video. But I thought we could just start off with the artwork here. The artwork is absolutely beautiful. There are two what look like ancient dragons, one red and one white, who are going into combat with each other. Interestingly, the white dragon, I don't know if this is like a staple thing or not, but the white dragon has two tails and there's all these huge beautiful crystals of ice. I mean, maybe it's a gemstone dragon, but it's absolutely stunning, really beautiful to look at. And this is the first module, I guess, supplement book, whatever you want to call it, where the alternate cover is actually another version of this image. Usually they have a very different style, but they've got two different artists to do the same image of this same sort of conflict. And maybe these two dragons are characters, I don't know. But we have this kind of like Gandalf-like character and a few other adventurers shielding themselves from the apocalyptic onslaught of these two creatures. Unfortunately, D&D Beyond, I thought when I purchased this minutes ago, I would be getting a PDF of the entire book, but D&D Beyond apparently doesn't work that way. So we have everything split up into segments and I can examine all of these rules. It's not going to be quite the same as having a physical copy. So this is more of a preliminary review of the rules and things like that. I'm hoping there's going to be a lot of art in here as well, but because that's what I'd expected to comment on a decent bit as an artist, but I think we're going to be putting our DM hats on and mostly talking about the rules today. So yeah, let's dive in and see what we've got. Okay, to start us off, we have an image of Fizban himself, who is writing this. I like it when they do stuff like that. When they have, like Xanathar's Guide, Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, they have it, and really Volo's was kind of like the best one in my opinion for this, is when they have an in-game character from D&D lore, and I tend to always say that I'm not a huge fan of like D&D lore specific characters because I like to homebrew campaigns. I don't really want to be dealing with lore specific characters from other franchises, basically specific characters and things like that. But I do like reading them in a meta context. So I really like it in this sense, taking it as a bit of a story. We're having like Fizban's own understanding of dragons themselves. And we have a quote from him right at the very start here. Fizban opens us up by saying, "This book insists on sorting dragons into little understandable boxes, as if the reader had only 100 years or so to live, and their tiny baby brains could hold only so much knowledge." Which I find really interesting, because my understanding, although again, I'm not the biggest D&D specific lore buff, like I'm a monster buff and I'm a mythology buff, but not D&D lore specific, is, I mean, looking at the image here sort of confirmed it to me that this is Bahamut's true form. He's got a kind of silver scaled, cloak, I guess, scarf maybe, with a golden canary, being an ancient golden dragon here. He looks like a cheerful, wizened old man, got very strong Gandalf vibes, but for him to be talking about humanoid things as tiny baby brains seems very un-Bahamut as far as I would understand it. But maybe Bahamut's a bit more of a... I'm looking for a nice YouTube friendly term, but you know where I'm going with it. Okay, so we're presented with 6 chapters, which is nice, which breaks the game, breaks the book down into these segments. We have the first chapter, which is all about what the player can get out of the new book. So roughly speaking, I'm assuming the majority of the rest of the book is going to be for DMs, which, you kind of assume they're probably the people who are putting the money away for this book. But chapter 1 includes things like variant Dragonborn races, which means, we've got the Gemstone Dragonborn for sure in here. And there was that Unearthed Arcana a while back about doing metallic and chromatic Dragonborn, kind of fleshing them out a bit more, making them more in line with how the community viewed Dragonborn and less sort of hemmed into the original 4th edition, like Dragonborn are all, brown scaled, they're all, the breath weapon is unimportant, it could be any kind. I'm assuming this kind of ties them back into their heritage a little bit more. But we'll see how different it is from the Unearthed Arcana, if it's just word for word, or the Unearthed Arcana was. It'll be interesting. But it also includes the Drake Warden Ranger, which sounds very cool. I'm guessing those Final Fantasy fans are probably going to get Dragoon, a kind of like jumping and spear wielding ranger perhaps, and we've got the Way of the Ascendant Monk, which is very cool. I'm thinking that probably ties back to, remember in the Dragonborn video I talked about how the first ever Dragonborn in D&D's lore at least were worshippers of Bahamut who underwent a ritual where they severed all ties to the material plane. They went into a silver egg and they were reborn as the first Dragonborn. So that could be maybe someone's path to detachment in the pursuit of following Bahamut. Who knows? We'll find out. Got some feats, which is going to be really interesting. I wonder if there's any new feats that are different from the ones in the Unearthed Arcana related to dragons, and role-playing suggestions that can connect characters of any class to a draconic theme. So that's really cool. So if you want to have dragons to be a really, really central part of your plot, there seems to be some interesting ways without going like, I have to be a Dragonborn, I have to be one of these classes, whatever. So there could be some interesting parts there. Chapter 2 discusses magic related to dragons, including new spells, heck yeah, magic items and draconic gifts. Nap, one of my patrons, has told me that there are some amazing magic items in here, and Nap does not mess around. His characters are always... he's like the best version of a min-maxer. Like, he finds the exploit and makes a fun character that's role-playing based around it. So I'm assuming that the magic items in here are horrendously powerful, but also lore appropriate if Nap is a fan. Draconic Gifts, supernatural gifts explicitly connected to a dragon's power. Ooh, maybe dragon marks from Eberron or something like that. Chapter 3 presents tips, advice, and tables to help dungeon masters build encounters, adventures, and whole campaigns around dragons. Love that. Very mysterious. Not quite sure what that's going to be. Chapter 4 discusses dragon lairs and hordes. Maybe some new varied types depending from dragon to dragon, rather than having like a staple type for, red dragons and blue dragons. Who knows?
examining what a lair means to a dragon and exploring the correlation between a dragon's magical might and the value of the dragon's hoard. Okay, now I have heard a really great rumour that dragons are the embodiment of the material plane. And I was talking to someone about this the other day, that dragons are essentially the angels or demons or archfey of the material plane. So this could be explaining why a dragon's presence kind of warps their surroundings, which would be really fun. And it's something that I really want to cover in some more videos about, maybe, our understanding of things like, various celestial planes or the abyss, for example, are seeing angels and devils, and dragons being the equivalent of that for the material plane, manifestations of the most material plane that there could possibly be, the magic of the material plane. Perhaps that implies that other planes have creatures like us, just not dragons, nothing like them, that exist on those planes that would be interesting to explore. So we might be able to go to like the elemental planes and see just some normal dudes hanging out there that have nothing to do with fire but can survive there. But the things that we know as like elementals are still really deadly to them. So interesting if that's the case. Looking forward to getting to that. Chapter 5 provides an extensive resource related to each of 20 different draconic creatures. We're getting 20 dragons in this book? For each kind of dragon, this chapter provides inspiration to help DMs craft dragon personalities. Excellent, sorely needed. And dragon-themed adventures, including sample lair maps. Wonderful stuff. Chapter 6, the final chapter, includes stat blocks and lore for a variety of new dragons, yes, and dragon-oriented creatures. I wonder what that means. The family of gem dragons, yes, finally. I do love the Matthew Colville gemstone dragons. I love how customizable they are. They aren't easy to use on the fly though, so if you're doing a kind of random encounter table, it would be great to have a more simplified version, which 5e is good at, so we'll see what that's like. Dragon aspects of dragon gods, interesting. Are we getting Sardior? Dragon minions, yes, love the word minion. Minions are some of the best things from 4th edition, so hoping we've got some stuff like that, and more can be found here. Wonderful stuff, very excited. Okay, so interesting development. It looks like, well, I mean, D&D's lore has been a tiny bit messy up until 5th edition. There was sort of like the first lore that people kind of got on board with, and then I think it was 3rd or 4th edition, probably 4th, I'll be honest, because we all like to blame 4th edition for a lot of stuff. But there was a time when the lore was rewritten, and it became very difficult to kind of piece together 100% what was going on, what the kind of past of things were. And in an effort to clear that up, it seems like they've kind of rewritten things a 3rd time. That might make things way more confusing, I don't know. But one major thing, in a passage called Elegy for the First World, seems to indicate that in this edition, dragons created the prime material plane, or at least the world that we're on. I need to kind of read a little bit more about it, but rather than Asgarath or Io, the two different versions of the same sort of god that were in previous versions of this history, that got split apart to create Bahamut and Tiamat. These two creatures, Bahamut and Tiamat, don't look like they were split apart in this. They look like they are two primordial dragon gods who have maybe always been. But they were responsible for creating the material plane in the form of a single first world. All the worlds that now constitute the plane are, in the words of the poem, I think this is the very long poem at the start, seedling realities formed when the first world was sundered into some unexplained catastrophe. So, I hope you like retcons, because we've got another one. I'm not sure what that means for the lore of Bahamut and Tiamat. Tiamat's actually one of the characters that I genuinely do really like from D&D lore. So we'll see. We'll see what this means. But, interestingly, as things that are responsible for the prime material plane and, like, key parts of it, it sounds like they created it as well. So that's interesting. And then it goes on to talk about these kind of seedling worlds, these kind of offshoot worlds that we're all more familiar with. Forgotten Realms, Greyhawk, Dragonlance, Eberron, and so on. Okay, so this is a new entire feature of dragons that really changes their lore. So I'm going to read this word for word for you in something called Dragon Sight. I've literally never heard this before. This is the first time I'm reading it. I skipped ahead a tiny bit just to see what it was talking about, and it seems like it's a really big deal. So it says, a little known phenomenon supports the central ideas expressed in Elegy the First World, this poem at the beginning. Occasionally, dragons develop a sense known as Dragon Sight, which I'm assuming is probably going to be a spell that we get access to, like True Sight or Dark Vision, that kind of thing. An awareness of multiple incarnations of themselves across different worlds of the material plane. Dragon Sight is most common in ancient dragons, especially when their enormous hordes include items from other worlds or powerful artifacts, whose history span multiple worlds. Gem dragons, perhaps because of their connection to Sardior, are most likely to develop Dragon Sight. Sardior, the gemstone dragons being psionic in nature. Dragons who develop Dragon Sight amass knowledge that spans the material plane, making them among the foremost experts on worlds beyond their own. With time, Dragon Sight can expand beyond passive awareness to allow active communication between a dragon's incarnations. Some ancient dragons with well-developed Dragon Sight begin to weave grand plans that involve coordinating activities across multiple worlds, culminating in cosmos-shaking events. Oh, interesting. Now, I've heard a lot of talk about the Great Worm. It begins to bring this up now that there are stats for something more powerful than an ancient dragon. That some people are disappointed about, some people are really pleased with. We'll see what it's like. It's kind of showing us the rough stats here for just like your average Great Worm. But it's saying that the formation of Great Worm, rather than just through age, because up until this point, true dragons would, just as they age, they would get exponentially more powerful and intelligent and more connected to their prime element. But it sounds like, as a result of this Dragon Sight, this ability to see different incarnations of themselves across different planes, when this gets strong enough, when they get really ancient, they get really attuned to this Dragon Sight, they can start coordinating with other versions of themselves and merge between realities to become this Great Worm, this multi-dimensional mega dragon, essentially. It sounds a lot like basically becoming a god without actually saying that. Or at the minimum, it could just mean that your dragons are now Rick from Rick and Morty, so who knows? We'll have a look. Okay, in the character creation section here, we have an absolutely beautiful piece of artwork that has a phoenix in the background there, tiny little phoenix. We've got a psionic monk maybe punching a red dragon. Absolutely beautiful work. We've got what looks like a druid or a fighter here with a beautiful spear fighting. I'm assuming by the golden eyes there, maybe an Azamar. Here we go. In his guise as a young monk, Bahamut helps a pair of adventurers put an end to a young red dragon's depredations. So the gnome or elf or whatever it is there that's punching the red dragon with like a psychic fist, it's apparently Bahamut. So maybe less of a pacifist than I gave him credit for. Good to see the return of the new character creation rules in here. They seem to be in all new books they're releasing. I think this is the way that D&D is going to go forward. That your race does not define what stats you increase. Your background does, and by background that means your character, so you get to choose whatever you like. You learn some languages that are relevant to your character, and they're not specific to your culture or race, which is really nice. They could be if you want them to be, but they don't have to be, and that's something that the community's been asking for. It is the very minimum, it's the very smallest amount. We would probably like to see some more stuff embellished about the drow and how they're not inherently evil, and how orcs aren't inherently evil, and so on and so forth. But it's a good start. They have the right intentions in mind, and it's nice to see that that's carrying on going forward, and they're not doubling, they're not backing down from that. That seems to be what we're probably going to get more of in like a 5.5 or a 6th edition one day. Beautiful piece of artwork here. Yeah, so the Chromatic Dragonborn seem roughly the same as the Unearthed Arcana. I'm not going to bring up the Unearthed Arcana to kind of like compare notes exactly, but the same essence is there. You're elemental based, essentially. So you get your breath weapon, just like all Dragonborn do. At 5th level, you get chromatic warding, so you become immune, in this case, to a damage type associated with your ancestry that you pick when you get your breath weapon or whatever. Gemstone Dragonborn. So this is the first look that I've seen of the Gemstone Dragonborn, which is a huge part of this book. It's nice. I do like it. I love the idea, if they're going down the psionic route, which I assume they still are, having all their horns and things like that be floating crystals is really nice. I probably do prefer the idea that they are kind of more fleshy creatures with huge crystals protruding where horns might be, for example, but this is a really cool way of connecting them to their psionic abilities, and that's really nice. It's really, really lovely artwork. They have a huge amount of personality, because up until this point, the Dragonborn have been very stoic, very perhaps brutal, almost filling the role of like an orc perhaps, or maybe having sort of like lizard folk traits projected onto them as being these things that are kind of scary and unfeeling. But that's not what Dragonborn are all about. They're very intelligent. Dragons themselves are hugely intelligent. Not that that has any marker on personality, but it's nice to know that they've gone down a route here. They're all enjoying a drink together, and they're all like cheering and smiling, and like you feel who these people are rather than them being just a Dragonborn. So it's really nice to see that kind of. I think we're going to get to know the Dragonborn as like a people rather than just their stats in this. Interesting, they've gone down a breath weapon route for the Gemstone Dragonborn as well. Gemstone Dragons, as I was aware of them through Matthew Colville, don't have breath weapons. They purely have psychic abilities. So I'll be interested to see what the different types of gem dragons correlate to various different breath weapons. They gain telepathy, and at 5th level they can fly as well, so they can manifest spectral wings, which is exactly the same as the Unearthed Arcana, but I think it was a feat in that, so I think that's been moved to one of their racial abilities. Either way, nice feature. Would quite like to see Dragonborn in general gain wings, but then that might sort of upset fans who have had Dragonborn in the past, so maybe it is good that it's just a Gemstone Dragonborn feature. Okay, interesting. So we've got the Gemstone Dragonborn, the Gemstone Dragons here and what they're associated to. So Amethyst Dragons are associated with Force, Crystal is Radiant, Emerald is Psychic, Sapphire is Thunder, Topaz is Necrotic. Necrotic kind of implies that they're going to be villainous, perhaps. Not always, but it kind of implies undeath. Do they have a greater connection to undeath? It would be interesting to see. Otherwise, all of those sound great. Yeah, intrigued. Yeah, they've kept Metallic Dragonborn roughly the same. They get 2 breath weapons, just like Metallic Dragons. Well, they have an Enervating Breath and a Repulsion Breath here. Each creature in the cone of a breath weapon can become incapacitated, and Repulsion Breath can knock people prone and push them away. Interesting. I don't think I've seen that before. Definitely loving this kind of take on the Dragonborn. They're looking far more like Argonians. They're far more familiar, and again, removing the kind of tentacle thing in exchange for something like hair. It looks a little bit like seaweed. I'm liking that a lot more than the thick, kind of chunky, what would you call it? Kind of like Star Wars tentacles, I guess, that kind of seem like they're really squishy. So I'm liking that a lot, the new take on those. Okay, so the monk way of the Ascendant Dragon is... Oh, hang on here. We've got another quote here from Fizban himself saying, "My favourite Ascendant monks all narrate their bodily attacks aloud with fun onomatopoeias like swish, kapow, Indeed. I'm liking Fizban less and less as time goes on. Getting strong gnome vibes from Fizban. So the outline of this class, of the subclass of the Ascendant Monk, says the Dragon God Bahamut is known to travel to the material plane in the guise of a young monk. Oh yes, this is us. This is exactly what I was talking about. So this is people who are attempting to become a Dragonborn, or perhaps this is rewriting the old Dragonborn thing, and perhaps Ascendant Dragon is what the followers of Bahamut became, essentially. Because it doesn't talk initially about becoming a Dragonborn, like changing your race or species, whatever it is. So I will be interested to see if they keep that in as we go on, or if that's kind of like rewritten. Okay, that's great. Draconic Disciple allows you to imbue your abilities with more of a draconic essence. So monks famous for beating the absolute hell out of people with, pole arms and fists. And according to this, you can, when you damage someone with an unarmed strike, you can choose for that damage. I don't know if this seems to... I don't think you need to spend a key point or anything like that. You can just change the damage type from bludgeoning or whatever to acid, cold, fire, whatever type of dragon you want to be associated with. And you can invoke the presence of a dragon within yourself, like so either to calm yourself or to fill yourself with, kind of the essence of a dragon. So you can re-roll intimidation or persuasion checks. So if you fail, you can re-roll it and try and turn it into a success, but you can't use it more than once between long rests. You learn Draconic, which you'd hope if you are studying dragons. Excellent. As you'd hope, you also get access to a breath weapon. So I don't know if that stacks. Yeah, it looks like it would. So if you go for a Dragonborn monk, especially a metallic Dragonborn, you're going to be having multiple breath weapons. Or if you're not one of those, then you can at least have a breath weapon. It says you can use this feature a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. While you have no uses available, you can spend 2 key points to use this feature again, which is great. So you get some free uses of this, like a shotgun, and then you can start using your key points. This is absolutely what the monk needs. Monks are really, they get quite weak as time goes on. You end up wanting to multi-class into something else to keep up with the rest of your group, unless you're purely in it for the flavour of the class. But this seems to be like quite a good way of letting people have access to a really decent kind of spell-like attack for monks finally. I'm glad that they're giving them the option to, you have this thing that you can use for free, and then you can use key points on it after the fact if you want to keep using it. So to tap into your reserves of spirit, into your reserves of power, magic, whatever you want to call it. That's nice. Okay, so in conclusion, Dragon Monk seems like a really fun version of a monk. Not so sure about higher level. It's useful, it's good, no complaints. But there are certainly stronger, higher level features and abilities, so... yeah, good for flavour. Probably not the most competitive if you're looking for the strongest thing. But yeah, it does the job. Got another quote here from Fizban when it talks about the Warden Ranger, saying, they say that rangers tend to look a lot like their bestial companions. That makes Wardens among the most attractive of humanoids. Fizban is starting to seem like a real... Again, I'm searching for the right kind of YouTube-friendly word here. Slimeball, I guess? Seems like his gnome points counter is going up. Interesting. Okay, so the Warden seems to be, I'm wrong, this is not a way to get a Dragoon. This seems to be their revised Beastmaster Ranger, essentially. You get an animal companion in the form of a Draconic Spirit, which takes the form of a Drake. Which can, at higher levels or through certain abilities by the sounds of it, gain wings and become a full-fledged dragon, but it's not always like that the whole time. So interesting. If this fixes the Beastmaster Ranger by replacing it entirely, and we can kind of just go back to it and go, okay, cool, we'll just use dragons from now on, or we'll, just put another animal's stats in here, then that would be great, but we'll see. Okay, you gain Thaumaturgy, and you can speak Draconic because of the connection that you have to this creature. Okay, that's cool. The Drake Companion has its own stat block, so you're given a specific set of stats that work. You can change the type of dragon that you're getting each time you summon it by the looks of it. So you can change it to an acid, cold, fire, and so on. So like different colours, different abilities. It can infuse nearby creatures' weapon damage with 1d6 of that type as its reaction. It gets a 1d6 plus numbers attack. It doesn't get a multi-attack. But it does know Draconic, so it can converse with dragons. If you know Draconic, you can speak to your creature here, so that gives them an added ability, an added level of personality. You can actually turn them into characters a bit more easily because you can communicate with them. Hit points scales with the player. Yes, finally. That's so good. That is so good. So the armor class as well also stacks, increases over time. So it's 14 plus your proficiency bonus. So yes, this is finally a pet that scales rather than leveling up. I mean, scales, but I'm not trying to make a joke. But scales with you as you level up. Thank goodness. I hope it maybe gets some other attacks and things. I'm assuming that's kind of where we go with this, that it gets like a kind of, breath attack and we heard that it gets wings and stuff like that as it goes. And you use your action to summon this thing. So presumably you can kind of re-summon it, as it were, to change the elemental type that it is. So basically you have like you'd never want to get your animal companion killed, but you can summon this spirit. And as an action, you can basically change what type it is as your action, which is cool. Or you could have a plethora of interesting characters at your disposal. Maybe kind of like Naruto, you summon a bunch of different frogs that have different personalities. Maybe you have a bunch of different drakes at your disposal that you can kind of summon for different purposes. Okay. Now we are talking. At 7th level, your Drake, which is already pretty good and levels up with you essentially, gets some features that you can sort of inflict upon it. So rather than being a Drake four-limbed Drake, when you summon your Drake at level 7, it grows wings on its back and gains a flying speed equal to its walking speed. So you straight up at level 7, your Drake turns into a dragon. This is really cool. Drake mount, the Drake grows to a medium size, reflecting your special bond. You can use your Drake as a mount. Great. Perfect. This is so cool. This is basically, you get a dragon wormling as a pet, and it grows with you as you get stronger and bond with it. I'm loving this class already so much. This is going to be a very popular class. This completely replaces Beastmaster, I think. Yes, level 11. The dragon gets a breath attack, dealing 8d6 damage, increasing to 10d6 at 15th level. This class is filth. This is going to be great. Does it get actions on its own turn, though? This is the thing. Because that's the big decider of the Beastmaster, that it has to act on your turn. If this thing acts on its own initiative count, then they've fixed it, they've solved it, and that's great. This is worth the book in itself. Okay, here we go. Resolved. Once you summon this Drake in combat, the Drake shares your initiative count, but takes its turn immediately after yours. It can move and use its reaction on its own, but the only action it takes on its turn is the dodge action, unless you take a bonus action on your turn to command it to take another action. That action can be one in its stat block or some other action. If you are incapacitated, the Drake can take any action of its choice, not just dodge. So you're using your bonus action to deal attacks with this thing. I still kind of like it. If you get a second attack in this ranger form, then they've still fixed it. If they don't let you do that, then it might not be entirely fixed. We'll see how it goes. It's okay. I thought it was going to be amazing. It's good. I like it a lot. I would play one of these. Whether or not I would feel like I'm kind of missing out on damage, we'd have to see. It's worth it to have a mount. It's worth it to have a dragon as a pet. It's a dragon that can speak. It does kind of do its own thing. The only being able to... It is a character, and it's got 8 intelligence, so it is smart. I suppose the idea that you could maybe give this thing magic items, if maybe it could do things like take the help action or other, like harmless actions, I would say this would be great. I would have no qualms with it whatsoever. But the only action it can take of its own accord without you commanding it is dodge. So I think it still needs a tiny bit of work, but it's good. It is good. Okay, so interestingly, no cantrips, no first level spells, but plenty of other ones, including a 7th level spell called Draconic Transformation. Not a big mystery what that does, and also I'm now very excited to give all of my villains that ability. So, I mean, we'll read it. It could still be rubbish, but turns you into dragon spell. Yes, please. So we have a 3rd level transmutation spell called Ashardalon Stride. Cool. It lets you move quickly and the ground burns around you when you do it. Fun. It's a nice bit of flavour for a sorcerer, especially if you're going for sort of like combat-based spells. It looks like this is Artificer, Ranger, Sorcerer, and Wizard ability. Ranger, interesting. Oh, because, the new thing. Here we go, Draconic Transformation. We come back to this blind sight feature. I don't typically associate that with being like a major draconic thing, but it seems like one of those things that happens. With Aurora, you draw on the magic of dragons to transform yourself, taking on draconic features. You gain the following benefits until the spell ends. You get your blind sight, exactly as the kind of monk class does. You get a breath weapon, and you get wings. Breath weapon deals force damage, so that's pretty good. However you want it to be. It forces the type of damage that things are least likely to be resistant to. You get some wings and stuff. So it seems like you shroud yourself in the kind of like a spirit of a dragon. You're not turning into a dragon a la kind of druid, wild shape, which makes me really want to roll a kind of like make a kind of druid draconic shapeshifting subclass. But maybe. I don't know, until the spell ends. So for a minute you basically gain some features associated with being a dragon. Doesn't seem like it's worth a 7th level spell slot, I'll be honest. Here we go. Although, okay, the breath weapon, I may be wrong. When you cast this spell, and as a bonus action on subsequent turns for the duration, you can exhale a 60-foot cone of damage. Okay, I'm wrong. That might be worth a 7th level slot to have the bonus action, but it is 7th level. So I'm assuming this is like mainly just sorcerers who are getting this one. Druid. Okay, druid, sorcerer, and wizard. Okay, so how many spell slots you get? Maybe 3 of them per day. They last for a minute each. You're not really likely to have more than 3 combats. Maybe you are. Fizban's Platinum Shield, more sort of evidence supporting the idea that Fizban might be Bahamut, which is disappointing because I'm really disliking Fizban so far. Fizban himself says about his own spell, scholars have engaged in lengthy debates over whether or not this spell should properly be attributed to me. Honestly, I've created so many things, I can't really keep track of them all. Who is this guy? He's so he has no redeeming qualities so far. He's really smug as well. Come on, Fizban, show me a glimmer of not being a complete... We need a word that I can use here. Being a complete gnome. Fizban, someone that we've seen earlier on, wearing a platinum scarf, indicating that he might very well be Bahamut, opens the section about magic items by talking about platinum scarves. He says, if you happen to find yourself in possession of a platinum scarf, be prepared for side effects. Head swivels, gasps of admiration, and a myriad of compliments. I hate this person. I really, if this is Bahamut, as my theory suggests, I've not only totally not got a grasp of who Bahamut is, but I never want to associate with any characters who worship them. They seem like an absolute... Egypt is the phrase that my wife just sort of like threw over the top of our computers there as a decent, friendly term for what we can call this person. But know that my impressions of this character are much stronger than that. But this is what YouTube will allow me to get away with.
You just get neckbeard vibes.
Yeah, he's super neckbeard. He loves himself. Okay, so magic items. We have an absolute ton. So I'm going to skim these because you're going to want to read these for yourself. Looks like an amethyst lodestone allows you to get some fairly serious gravity-based magic, including casting the reverse gravity spell 3 times. Lets you fly. And you get a great sort of like Fusroda ability. There is no way that gravitational thrust is not a reference to Fusroda. They have definitely played a lot of Skyrim, and yeah, it's great. Love it. Crystal Blade. What do we get here? A horn or a spine from a crystal dragon fashioned into a sword. It deals radiant damage. Oh, and you regain a number of hit points equal to the radiant damage of the sword. And it sheds a bright light. It sounds like a kind of crystalline version of a lightsaber that also heals you. Great weapon for clerics. Really nice. Great weapon for paladins too. Dragonhide Belt. +1, 2, or 3, required specifically by monks, increases their saving throws of their difficulty classes for their key abilities. Ooh, in addition, you can use an action to regain key points equal to a roll of your martial arts die. You can't use this action again until the next dawn. That's great. That's really, really nice. That's almost going to become a staple of monks. I like the fact that it's uncommon at a +1, rare or very rare, so you can give this to a monk really early on just to have them have an ability to regain some of their key points, which I think, to be honest, monks do kind of need. So yeah, Dragonhide Belt, get it started early, give it to them early on. It's an uncommon item. Dragonlance, is this where the setting is named after? I don't know, I've not read any of those or played in that setting, but let's have a look. So a weapon, a lance or a pike. A Dragonlance is a renowned weapon forged from a rare metal with the aid of powerful artifacts associated with Bahamut. +3 bonus to attack and damage, and if you hit a dragon with it, it deals an extra 3d6 force damage. So this is your Dragoon. This is how you get your Dragoon from Final Fantasy. It's a long range weapon, a lance or a pike. It deals extra damage to dragons, and it's a +3 weapon to begin with. Very, very situational, but great if you're in a very dragon-based campaign. Love it. Platinum Scarf. Let's see if it's worth what Fizban was saying about it. So you can pluck a scale from the scarf and it heals a creature for 10d4 hit points, so pretty strong. It can become a +1 shield if you choose it to, or turn into a radiant hammer. Once 3 scales have been pulled from the scarf, no more scales can be removed until the next dawn. So you get to use each one of those quite regularly. So you could, I mean, it's a great item for healers. It generally seems like a really nice item specifically for Dragonborn clerics and things of that nature. Clerics in general, really. But yeah, great. Love it. That's a really nice one. We've got Potion of Dragon's Majesty. Potion looks like a liquid gold. Very nice. With a single scale from a chromatic, gem or metallic dragon suspended within. Ooh, if you drink the potion, you transform into an adult dragon of the same kind. The transformation lasts for 1 hour. I really like that. That's really great fun. Is the most important part of that. You know, you could probably buy those or synthesize those. The alchemist of your group might be able to make them. That just seems like a really fun thing to do. And yeah, if it's overpowered or if it's underpowered, it's irrelevant because that's a great flavor item. Great, absolutely love that that's in here. I can only imagine the amount of chaos that players will get up to with the ability to drink something and turn into a dragon. Also, can you imagine having a boss fight where there's like a giant dragon up somewhere and you all get one potion and you don't know what kind of dragon you get when you drink it, and then you get to have this cool sky battle, and like maybe everything's really, you know, it isn't impossible to defeat dragon enemy at some point, but then you become these kind of, you know, you could scale this up to being scale this up to being, you know, a higher level type of dragon. it would be really cool. This is a really fun way to have an awesome boss fight. I can think of so many ways to have so much fun with this. I'm going to use this for something, but it's going to be epic. Okay, this is a really cool idea. So it gives us a reason to talk more about the hordes of dragons and why they might want to hoard specific things. Basically saying that certain items absorb power in the same way that dragons do from being in a dragon's horde. So this is the kind of thing like, you know, the One Ring would become more powerful in Smaug's presence because Smaug has added it to their horde. So this is the kind of thing that you can leave an item with a dragon or discover an item from a dragon's horde, and it will increase its abilities, increase its power, increase its potency, whatever. It's a cool idea. I like it. There's dragons' wrath weapons. Various different types of weapons get different features. It can deal additional damage of the dragon whose horde it is type when they crit. Very cool. Okay, so the Draconic Gifts section are basically feats or boons that a DM will bestow upon a player. They're not exactly feats. This is again very Skyrim-esque, saying that the death of a dragon can result in its power taking root in a character, whether that person is the dragon's chosen heir or the dragon's killer. So you get a portion of dragon soul within you, which kind of explains the sheer volume of dragon-based sorcerers out there without them necessarily being the children of like half dragons or so on, who are supposed to be infertile anyway. So this is a cool feature. I love it. I think you can obviously, as a DM, use this to your own values. If you want to have a dragon be able to bestow these gifts on someone, you totally could, but it's saying that even if you don't want to have an allegiance with a dragon in some capacity, if you slay one, you might get one of these cool features anyway. Love it. It comes with a series of marks that alter your character forever, including things like giving them dragon-like eyes or some scales in various places. The colour of their hair might change to look like dragon scales. Tattoos and marks, maybe claws, so on and so forth. Cool features, just a nice bit of DM flavour there. You might get a Draconic Familiar. So this is a Draconic gift that lets you do Find Familiar. Always takes the form of a pseudo-dragon, and it can attack this time, which is great. Draconic Rebirth, you become a Dragonborn, which is great. That's absolutely fantastic. Again, very much this kind of Bahamut type deal. Your features change to that of a Dragonborn. You get all the powers of being a Dragonborn. You basically re-roll your character as a Dragonborn and then carry on. Cool idea, love it. Dragon senses, you gain keen senses like a dragon, you get blind sight. Again, they're really hammering this home. I did not know this was a feature of dragons. And you get wisdom perception check increase. There's echo of dragon sight, so you get some version of this. You can cast contact other plane as a ritual. Cool. Yeah, nice idea. Good sort of plot device for characters. This gives people more incentive to go out dragon hunting if they're trying to get powers that they might need to like save their family, save the city, save the world or whatever. They might need to go dragon hunting in order to collect these powers. This could be a really cool just whole plot for your whole campaign. There's also feats as Draconic Gifts here as well, that talk about the idea of maybe you could let players take these as feats, possibly, or maybe you could let certain feats be given to players instead of the gifts here, if they apply. So yeah, cool. I think that's the kind of thing that DMs will probably come up with on their own, but it's nice to have something that explicitly says like, hey, don't worry about it. If you want to play around with this and homebrew it, you're probably not going to break the game, which I love. Right, now fundamentally they have some really great stuff in here about how to roleplay dragons, what their lifespans are like, how they reproduce, the deaths of dragons, and kind of like talking more about these dragon marks, what they're like in undeath, so we know a lot more about Draco Liches, how they're worshipped, how they shapeshift, what their cults are like, what their minions and things are like, how to do great dragon encounters. It's really the kind of stuff that I've been hoping to see from more D&D books that they started in Volos, that really talked about how to make your monsters into characters, like how to make, in Volo's case, beholders and things like that into actual characters rather than just a stat block that you're fight. This is how to make dragons, who are arguably some of the most intelligent creatures in the game, into real characters what their impacts are on the world, and so on. But that's a fun thing for you to read. I'm not going to spoil that for you. I'm not going to take you through the whole thing here, but know that it really fleshes out and expands what makes dragons great. However, I am the monster drawing guy. I am the Monster Monday person. It's not my place to tell you about every single aspect of this, but what I do want to do is start looking at all the really cool monsters that we get right at the end of the book, and then I'll give you my final verdict. So we start off with this beautiful piece of art. There's some dragons here and Dragonborn, what looks like Dragonborn monks. This guy looks like Bahamut down here perhaps, with his canaries, or maybe someone who's affiliated with him. And then there's this absolutely cataclysmically sized blue dragon off in the distance. Look at how minuscule these already way beyond horse-sized dragons are by comparison to this sky eclipsing thing. This is what I think of when I think of dragons, and I love it. I'm so excited about that. You have Amethyst Dragons, who it turns out are really fond of flumps. So they're now one of my favourites. I love a flump, and I love amethyst as a colour in general and as a stone. So yeah, this is really cool. They hoard arcane things, according to this. They have a lot more spell-like abilities, and spellcasting is hard built into them, which I really love. I feel like all dragons, if you're running a dragon-based encounter and you're not using the spellcasting rules on your dragons, then I think you're missing out on a lot. I think this is the main problem that I've had with D&D in terms of its dragon encounters, is that they're in the name, so they should probably be one of the most terrifying things in the game. They should be one of the most awe-inspiring things in the game, and they are, they're fun, they're deadly, but they could be more fun, they could be more versatile. Combat in general on the DM side of things could have a lot more versatility and a lot more options to use, and I'm so glad whenever I see something with spellcasting, especially if it's a creature, that has some more variety in what it can do. So yeah, absolutely loving the Gemstone Dragons so far. Oh, beautiful Amethyst Dragon artwork. Really, really nice. I like the kind of alligator-like face. There's a bit of kind of serpent about it as well. And all these floating crystals. That's so, so nice. Really, really nice depiction there. Kind of like the animated spells that were recently added. You have animated breath weapons, which is quite cool. So you could have your dragons making breath weapon minions to stock their lairs and dungeons with, which I think is so cool. That's a really amazing idea. I don't know why that hasn't been thought of before. I'm really glad that this is kind of more of a DM's toolkit on how to make a dragon's lair more fun, and something that the dragon is actively working on to deter or fight players without literally having to be present, and without there having to be a bunch of goblins or kobolds have moved into the dragon's lair and the dragon is sort of unaware of it, as per previous editions. This is no, the dragon is making animated frost elementals out of its breath in this kind of mechanical mass production factory type deal, and sending them through this lair tower defense style to defeat players. I love it. That's a really great idea. Aspect of Bahamut. I talked about it in my Bahamut Monster Monday that I probably wouldn't give him stats because he's supposed to be a pacifist, but then I've learned today that I know almost nothing about Bahamut, and either they've changed a lot about him or not, but now you can fight him if you want to, so there you go. Aspect of Tiamat, again, probably one of the most absolutely filthily powerful stat blocks. Glad to see it here as well, rather than just being in one particular supplemental book. In a book purely about dragons, it's nice to have a version of Tiamat that you can fight. Great job, love it. And there's some nice artwork there of Tiamat herself. Now, chromatic great worms I've heard a lot of talk about. This is one of the most controversial things about the book, as far as I'm aware. Some people are really disappointed with this. Some people are really pleased with it, but as mentioned before, this is kind of the deified version of a dragon when it merges with other versions of itself throughout reality or through some other means that's up to you as a DM. However this thing becomes super, super powerful. It's a single stat block for all dragon types, basically. I think there are other versions in here for more specific types, but if you just want, I want a chromatic Great Worm, or metallic Great Worm, or something like that, it gives you a base block, and then you can alter it based on whatever element it's affiliated with. They become gargantuan. They have, what you'd expect. It's real big. It's a really, really big creature. It does a absolutely mind-bogglingly large amount of damage, and it becomes basically like a mythic creature from it actually does have mythic action, so it is literally a mythic creature introduced from Mythic Odyssey and Theros, which I really like. So basically it gets a phase 2 if you gets mythic actions, and then if you reduce it down to X number of hit points, then it gets to have a bunch come back so that it can still be something that you're fighting. I've heard people talking about how they don't like how few things it can do. I don't honestly know if that's going to be an issue. The game's kind of built around the idea of you having 4 players and the DM. And I know a lot of people play in groups that are much larger than that. And the action economy is basically not tailor fit for groups larger than that, so that any number of actions that another person has, one side has, is largely going to win no matter what's going on. And I can get that. These things aren't completely invincible. It has a 22 armor class here. It can absolutely be defeated. But I don't know, I think it's pretty powerful. And if you use the spellcasting abilities, this thing is going to be... I can't remember exactly where I saw it. I saw it on Reddit somewhere, but I was talking to someone about it yesterday. I obviously didn't save it. But the ability, the kind of spellcasting variant for dragons, or at least spellcasting variant for all creatures, is part of the Dungeon Master's Guide. It's a standard feature. It's one of those things that's a variant rule, so not everybody knows about it, but it's something in the neighbourhood of, if something has a challenge rating, you can divide that by 2, and that sort of equates something like it's either spellcasting level or spell slots, or either way. High level thing means high power, and the gist of where this Reddit thread was going was saying that these things are basically 9th level spellcasters. I'm not going to do the maths, but yeah, cool, that seems about right. It's a chromatic Great Worm. If it's not a 9th level spellcaster, as a DM, I hereby decree that I would totally make it a 9th level spellcaster. So there's all sorts of spells like Meteor Swarm and things like that you could have this thing doing. With its main action, if you want some more variety in there. Finally, it gets mythic actions, so it can basically explode into a huge amount of damage. It has an arcane spear, so it has a sort of miniature breath weapon thing that it can use in its legendary actions. I think this thing has plenty of versatility, but then, I tend to play in fairly low-level groups. We have some artwork here, and its hand is about the same size as a city block. Which is what I want a dragon to be. These creatures are supposed to be like wreathed in whatever element they're associated with. As you can see here, the red dragon, which is absolutely incredibly cool, is like almost made out of fire here. You can see the dragon within it, but its wings become this blaze of fire. I would have maybe liked to see something a bit more like the Baylor in there, that if you attack this creature, or if you start your turn within X number of feet of it, you start taking damage of the appropriate type, just to kind of put it on par with things like a Tarask, because this is an apocalypse event. Like, if you're fighting something like this, you're doing everything you can to stop the world from ending, not just having an adventure. So I think that's more the kind of thing that I would like to see. Maybe that's included in the chromatic flare ability there in the mythic actions. But yeah, I like it. I can't imagine using something that powerful in my games, but then maybe if you're playing at that kind of level, maybe that's not that powerful. I don't know. You can tell me down in the comment section. I think it seems pretty good though. Got crystal dragons here, who again, inbuilt something like spellcasting. Great, love that. Love that for them. They've got their Radiant sort of affinity and various abilities of that nature, otherwise not breaking the mold in terms of dragons. They're telepathic and stuff, which is nice. They can use their change shape, but then I think that's kind of universal for all dragons now. So yeah, I like them. They're great. So we've got Deep Dragons of the Underdark. I kind of covered this in my Purple Dragons. I'm going to see how close they are to that sort of thing. Okay, they look really cool. I like that. They've got a kind of, what would you call that? Like a, what are those fish called? Anglerfish. It's got kind of like anglerfish vibe to it. I like it a lot. What do you do? There's like fungal spores. They have a nightmare breath. And plants grow where they die, but mostly sort of fungal things. Draco Hydras. I've been warned about these. Alright, so they're like a miniature Tiamat. Yeah, a challenge rating 11 version of Tiamat. Seems like a really cool idea. Get the reactive heads that Hydras have. Now, do they regrow heads once you chop one off? Yes. So if you cut off a Draco Hydra's head, it will regrow 2 more, gaining even more reactions. Has a lot of bite attacks. Any bite attacks as it has heads, so that's really, really deadly. It's basically just a Hydra with some wings and some breath weapon thrown in. It doesn't get like tons of breath weapons, but it does have the most frequently recharging breath weapon that I've seen, being on a 4 to 6 of a d6. So yeah, I like these guys. I think they're going to get a lot of use. I think they might even replace Hydras in a lot of cases, but I like them. I think that's a really interesting thing to do. Very cool. I can see that being used a lot. It's a Hydra plus, basically. Draconians, interesting. So are these half dragons? Are they something else? Draconians are bipedal monsters born from dragon eggs that have been corrupted or warped by powerful magic. Most often this corruption is a deliberate act, the work of an aspiring tyrant seeking to transform stolen eggs into a draconian army. Why would you want not just a dragon? They seem to explode when they die with magical force. Oh, they have an ability called Shape Theft that says when a Draconian kills a medium or smaller humanoid, the Draconian can magically transform itself to look and feel like that creature while retaining its in-game statistics. So these would make really good agents of a dragon if they're looking to infiltrate like a city, infiltrate a human government, that kind of thing. Would be really cool. I love the way they look. I love the idea of them completely. I just don't know why someone would choose to make one rather than having a dragon. Maybe if they steal a clutch of another dragon's eggs or something like that. I just can't fathom why you wouldn't want a full dragon on your team if these come from dragon eggs. But I like the way they look. I would probably reflavor these as something that like a dragon can, automatically cause some sort of blight, as like kind of the Guild Wars franchise. Dragons automatically produce this energy that warps everything around them into its image. So I would have people maybe transformed into things like this under the command mindlessly of the dragon, in which case they make a lot more sense to me. But I love them either way. They look very cool. Very, very cool. Definitely going to be using these guys. But yeah, I like these as an alternative. Like, again, if you use these as kind of like, dragon swoops into town rather than burning down the whole city. The whole city gets transformed by proximity to the dragon, as its horde does. We now know that dragon's presence does warp and shift things around them, so it would be really cool if that's the kind of thing that happens. I would like a civilization of these guys. There's some of them are low enough level that you could have a civilization of these guys, and it's another nice thing that kind of like, intelligent zombies or something like that. A dragon exists and converts everybody into basically their version of the drow or whatever that you can use as enemies. I think they're really fun. I like them a lot. I'm definitely going to get a lot of use out of them. Draconic Shard. Gem dragons wield psionic power, and when a powerful gem dragon perishes, the force of the dragon's will and mind sometimes refuses to pass on. This essence lingers in the form of a psychic remnant called a Draconic Shard. Okay, so these are like Draco Liches. Oh, and they tend to get trapped in objects. That's very cool. I see a huge potential for that kind of thing, like the kind of, again, One Ring kind of cursed thing. It's cursed because there's a gem dragon's ghost in it, basically. I like this. And it can choose to inhabit objects. Very cool. Dragon Blood Ooze. Always love new oozes. And it has a slime breath attack. Amazing. Dragon Bone Golems, which has a petrifying breath. Very cool. Can definitely see a lot of people making this kind of thing. Be a great thing for a museum. Got some cool Dragonborn here, including Dragonborn Champions of Bahamut, Dragonborn Champion of Sardior, so like a nice kind of psionic Dragonborn. Great for making kind of like villains or allies or whatever that are a decent level. They're like challenge rating 6, challenge rating 8, that kind of thing. So very, very useful. Beautiful artwork again. Dragonborn of Tiamat. We've seen this artwork before. Absolutely love it. Very, very cool. Dragonflesh Grafters. Yes, now this is very cool. People taking dragon parts and fusing onto people, either experiments or doing it voluntarily. You know how I love some flesh horror. This is like a dragon flesh golem, but someone has, used a living person for this. Absolutely love all of these stats. It's very cool. I like it. Definitely going to be able to use these things. You could use a million things other than this, but in the right circumstances, it's going to be a great fun thing. They can vomit acid and all this kind of stuff because they're like horrible flesh monstrosities that are pinned together and stuff. It's gross. It's cool. That meets my criteria for a good monster. Dragon Flesh Abomination. They've really fleshed out the Dragon Golem or Drolem kind of thing here. I love this. This is really cool. I want to draw my own versions of these. Maybe next Dragon December. Excellent. Okay, they've given you kind of like more than just cultists. They've given you the followers of certain dragons, whether they're employees, acolytes, thralls, students, or minions. Dragon Turtles we've already had, but they've introduced the Ancient Dragon Turtle here, which is a challenge rating 24 version of it. Okay, this seems like our kind of Great Worm, but the Dragon Turtle variant, which is just very cool. Look at that. Look at the size of that thing compared to all those ships. That you can make that. That's a whole continent, really. That's a country that is attacking people. I love this. This is how I picture dragons being. And I've always been slightly disappointed that they are like normal-ish, considerable sized, animal sized. That's like being attacked with a country, and I think that's so cool. That's a campaign to like, what the hell do you do about that? I hope challenge rating 24 is enough to embody that level of fear. It seems like it is. 15d8, steam breath, lots of mythic and legendary actions. Yeah, I hope so. We've got a young dragon turtle as well. So that's interesting. That seems to indicate that, unlike the lore that we've been given in the past, these do gain in power as they age. So maybe dragon turtles have just become true dragons then, rather than all of their history indicating that they are not. They're like famously the example of not a true dragon, a lesser dragon, but a great one. Maybe these are just our aquatic dragons from now on, because that seems to indicate that they meet more of the criteria for being a pure true dragon, whatever you want to call it. Elder Brain Dragon. We already covered my kind of like Mind Flayer Dragon, my Brain Eater Dragon. This is the official version. They have a tadpole brine breath, so they can breathe out tadpoles and infect people and make them into mind flayers and stuff. That's absolutely horrible. They're siege monsters. Yeah, this is definitely like the big bad of an Aberration campaign. An Eye Drake is something I've been really interested in. So yeah, we know, in my first ever Monster Monday was talking about beholders and how they reproduce is by dreaming of other beholders, and that's why they all look different, because they might imagine a rival and so on. Eye Drakes are when a rivalry between a beholder and a dragon becomes intense. The beholder becomes obsessed with dragons and therefore dreams up a dragon that's fighting them, and that manifests physically and becomes an Eye Drake and a beholder that's basically part dragon. They look goofy AF, but also really weird. I like them. They have an anti-magic breath rather than like the anti-magic eye thing. They have all the kind of eye rays, because you can see on the artwork here, all the little eyes are attached to the wings here. It's a weird blob monster that has tiny horns and kind of like a humanish face. They're freaky and they're kind of cool. They hover. They're basically a beholder with some added flavour, but I like them. I would probably just use stats from a beholder. I kind of want to draw my own version of one, but yeah, they're cool. Why not? I guess didn't need to be in here. Could have just used a beholder. They've got almost identical stats, but yeah, go for it. Why not? I'm happy they're here. I'm happy someone had fun drawing that. Gemstone Great Worms. There's not a lot of variety between the different Great Worms in here. The one thing is mass telekinesis, which is filthily powerful in Gemstone Great Worms. So this is again the kind of like dragon god level power thing. In this form, it's a gemstone dragon that turns into one. Mass telekinesis says that a great worm targets any number of creatures and objects it can see within 120 feet of it. No one target can weigh more than 4,000 pounds. Apparently that's 40 bags of cement, which is not a great thing. Oh, a white rhino. Okay, so a rhino's worth of weight, but that can be any number of things of that weight. Various cars weigh that weight. Yeah, so a car's worth of weight. It can pick up any number of creatures within 120 feet that weigh about the same weight as a car. And these creatures are restrained if they fail a strength save and can be taken with it wherever they want to go. If you're fighting one of these things, the issue being that you could be raised up into the air because this thing can fly 120 feet and can move you 60 feet per... Is it bonus action? It's swift anyway. And if you pass your save to get out of its telekinetic grasp while it's flying upwards, you have the death of the floor, like, you know, the impact. In the meantime, it can just be doing breath weapons at you and absolutely murdering you, or claw attacks, who knows. But this is just like the dragon now controls the battlefield and can choose the environment, I guess. It can move the whole world around in various chunks. So yeah, that's a really cool cinematic moment. I love it. We have a dragon horde mimic. Yes! Absolutely wonderful. Bigger mimics, always up for larger mimics. This is something that impersonates a treasure hoard and then opens up like Charybdis or like the Sarlacc pit monster in Star Wars and can eat people when they're trying to find treasure. Love that. Absolutely, really, really cool. Now this is one that, from the artwork, that I've been really interested to see. This is a lion drake, which is a cat with dragon wings and like dragon claws. I want to know why this exists, because I don't know what the benefit is aside from having, because like sphinxes exist and we have manticores and stuff, which are basically also winged lions. I want to know why we have this thing. It looks fine, you know, it looks cool. It has the long neck and wings of a brass dragon and the head and body of a lion, sometimes known as dragones or lion drakes. Who made you? Why did they make you? I don't think we actually get to find out. It has a roar of various descriptions that's a bit like a breath weapon, but scares people and does not do damage. It's a challenge rating 7. It does a decent claw attack, a more than decent bite attack, and it makes 3. It does a claw bite from older editions, basically. I mean, it doesn't seem like there's a good reason for those things to exist. I'm getting the feeling this is more like the reverse, like someone drew a cool creature and then put it in the game, rather than someone making a cool creature and then having an artist come and make it. Unless they're from previous editions. Without doing the research, I don't know off the top of my head. I don't know why you'd ever want to use one of these. I mean, other than, you know, it looks cool. It looks cool. I don't know much about where they exist, why they exist, what their motivations are. So I don't know why I would want to use one when I could be doing like a cool plot monster. But then if you want someone to ride around on a cat that can fly, that's like big enough, rather than having a familiar sized cat that can fly, which we have in the Monster Manual already. Yeah, why not? I mean, I'm glad it, you know, I'm happy for it to exist. I wouldn't have bought the book just to have these guys, if that makes sense. You know, it's like, it's fine. It's okay. Meh. Okay. So like a chromatic dragon being able to create a sentient version of its breath weapon, here a bit more calm and considered approach is given by metallic dragons who can forge things from the metals that make them up or similar metals and then infuse them with their breath weapons to give them life. This is a really cool idea, and they've given us some beautiful artwork here as well. So if you're looking for like a way to have Warforged in your game, and you want to connect them in some way to like dragons and their life-giving power and so on, is a really good way of doing it. They seem like robot servants. They're very sci-fi, bit sort of Renaissance style artwork here. They have a calming mist ability, so they seem like, you know, good medic. And yeah, that basically concludes it. There's a lot of really good lore in there. There's some really good monsters, some good player options as well. They might need a tiny bit of work, but not too much. We get a revised version of the D&D world lore, which, you know, take it or leave it. I'm not really going to use it personally because I like to homebrew my campaign worlds, but it's interesting flavour if that's the kind of thing that you go in for. I'd like to know your opinion on that, actually, if you leave that down below in the comment section. And we get a fully printed version of, you know, metallic, chromatic and gemstone Dragonborn, which I think we sorely needed outside of an Unearthed Arcana. This kind of makes it just a bit more official, and there's lots of really lovely artwork in here. So yeah, I enjoyed this book. I can see a lot of really good uses. In particular, I can see whole campaigns being based around being in the service of one dragon, using items from their horde, which grow in power over time. Maybe, you know, people aspire to become these kind of dragon aspirants, while also at the same time having to fight a legion of other dragons, maybe track them down, and dealing with the kind of corruption that ensues from that in the form of these draconids, whatever they're called, the kind of dragon humanoid type creatures. So yeah, I think this is a really nice addition. I don't think it sort of like breaks the mold or anything like that, but really, if you want to know about dragons, it does give you a lot of really great lore. I'm looking forward to what this book in particular means for me in the future when it comes to doing more Dragon December videos, because we've finally got a lot more lore in here. We've got a lot more flavour that I can draw upon for research and things that can help us really understand how to make your dragons characters, which I'm always enthusiastic about DMs being able to use. I don't like monsters just being like a threat. It's great when they are a character, a person, a thing that you can like have a conversation with, because ultimately these things start off, they're born from the egg as intelligent as a human will be at the apex of their life, and they only get smarter from there. So there's no reason why they would be foolish or just bestial if you don't want them to be. So yeah, I really like this book. I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to seeing how this will influence future Dragon Decembers, and I'm also looking forward to seeing what you guys think about the rest of Dragon December. So yeah, let me know your thoughts on this book if you already have it, or if this was insightful, if this convinced you to get it or convinced you not to get it. I'd love to hear why that is down in the comments section. In the meantime, thank you so much for joining me. This has been really, really lovely. I've really enjoyed looking through this and having a bit more of a kind of relaxed look. Let me know as well if this is the kind of thing that you'd like to see more of. I would love to do more kind of reviews and like sift through these things, my first impressions of these books when they are released, and just kind of let you know what's in them and whether they're worth it and stuff. In my opinion, if you are a collector of these books, yeah, I would say this is worth it. But if you are content with what you've already got, it's not going to change how you play D&D. It might just help you make dragons more interesting, and flesh out more of how they live and how to do sort of a campaign based around dragon, really is what this is for. But yeah, so I hope I'll see you on Monday for the next video of Dragon December, which is going to be about pink dragons. And until then, happy monster hunting, happy holidays, and I hope you survive all your dragon encounters. Bye!